All right, so it's May 7th, 2021. 9 years to the day. Brad Richards, 6.6 seconds. Also, you know what else I'm going to say? What also to the day? 2016, as a Met fan.
Oh, Bartolo's home run,
Yeah,
right?
Bartolo's Colon.
Yeah.
So May 7th has been a lucky day for us previously, but I don't even know how to describe the last 4 days. I can't even put it into words. I think as a fan of this team, you went from this like crazy high emotion of like, good for the team, good for sticking up for them in the statement. And then now we just kind of feel like I kind of feel like a jackass in a sense. And I feel like just even for liking hockey, like it's one thing to be mad at Tom Wilson. It's one thing to be mad at the Capitals or Dolan. And then I'm just like, God damn it. Why do I support this stupid league?
It's been a crazy 4 days. And the funny thing is, folks, like usually me and Jake have been pretty good about recording on Thursdays, and he's been busy with the school and work, so we pushed it back. And good thing we pushed it back because we have even more things to talk about. I think really the best way to approach this, Jake, is just go incident by incident and chronological order, going all the way back to the Tom Wilson incident. So obviously it seems like it's old news by now with how much has gone on, but Tom Wilson obviously going after Pavel Buchnevich in a kind of a cheap shotty kind of way, and then completely ragdolling for Artemi Panarin to essentially end his season. It was dangerous. It was reckless. It was stupid. I'll let you chime in first, Jake. Initially, let's go back to that when it happened. Initially, what were your thoughts and how have you kind of molded over the last few days?
Yeah, I mean, like I can't tell you how almost disinterested I was in this game. They're out of the playoffs. Like I'm looking for the kids to play, like just like anybody else, like we've been talking about, all that. And I'm sitting there, and I wish I could go back in time now to hear the sound I made when that happened, because it was just like, and that was just the Buchnevich punch to the back of the head. I'm sitting there, and I was like, wow, I jumped up out of my seat, and I couldn't believe how mad I was. I threw my phone, and I was just because I've said before on this podcast, like to you and to anybody I'm talking hockey to, I'm like, Tom Wilson is gonna hurt one of our players, and it's gonna be too late. And so again, like there's nothing I can say that 1,000 other people haven't said. This guy's a repeat offender, and we're just caught in this weird back and forth now once again with Department of Player Safety, who's in charge of the NHL, the boys club. Like, I don't know, the way this is being handled, it's just like too fraternity like for me. And it's really turned me off the last week to the game of hockey. I like, obviously the players showing character, like you love to see that. You like that, they're sticking up for each other, saying, hey, guess what? You guys think we're soft. We're at least going to stand up for ourselves. Like, great, good for the players. That's awesome. But aside from all the ownership stuff, I don't know. It's like, to me, it's disheartening as a diehard hockey fan. And it's disheartening because I know for the fact that that's going to turn so many other people off trying to grow the game. And they have this big ESPN deal coming. And sure enough, like people tuned in, but all those people, in my opinion, are window shoppers. They're not going to stick around to watch the game of hockey. It's like, I don't know. It just kind of disgusted me, all of it. Kind of from beginning to end. And here we are now, and we're kind of more back in a positive manner away from the Wilson situation. We can move on. We'll get into the ownership stuff as well. But the initial incident, yeah, it's just like, of course it happened. And then Panarin, inches, right? Like inches from being knocked out cold on the ice, or worse. And you'd think George Parros, of all people, who has been knocked out on the ice accidentally in a fight with Colton Orr a couple years ago, he would know the danger of that play. But other than that, I don't know. I just I think overall it hurts the game of hockey.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was scary to watch. Initially, look, I'm going to say this: Tom Wilson. The most frustrating part with Tom Wilson is that he's actually a really good hockey player when he chooses to be. He's an effective player. He's a modern day power forward. I mean, the last couple of years, a 40-point guy. And that's with being suspended and whatnot in certain aspects. He's got 33 points in 44 games this year. I don't think he's a bad hockey player by any means, but he's dangerous and like repeat offender. To not suspend him, at least for the league's sake, to get one game so you could get away from the gong show that was Wednesday night is so stupid and so short-sighted. And you said it's the inmates running the asylum. It's the old boys club. It's the fraternity aspect of it where these guys are, they talked a lot about how when Shanahan was in there and they started doing, stiffer suspensions, and then, the owners pushed back. I mean, I remember in the 2012 playoffs, remember Carl Hagelin got suspended 3 games for an elbow on Daniel Alfredsson. Carl Hagelin hasn't been suspended before, hasn't been suspended since.
He was in the league, what, at the time? A year?
That was his,
maybe
that
a
was
year?
That was his rookie year, but they gave him 3 games, get to that. Okay, look, if that's a precedent, like you move on, and they didn't like it. So they pushed back from it. Now you have Paros in there, a former enforcer who like thinks, talks about the code of the game. And look, the funny, crazy thing is George Paros went to Princeton, which always blows my mind. But it was disappointing. It's dangerous. It's reckless. And like I said, it's going to take, once again, it's just going to take someone getting really, really injured. I thought he should have been suspended probably. Look, realistically, I knew they weren't going to give him a crazy suspension, but I thought, look, maybe they'll give him the rest of the season and a playoff game, like 4 games, whatever it might be. Get him out against the Ranger game, and to come out and just do the $5,000 fine, I thought was just pretty juvenile. And just kind of the fact that they allowed Wednesday night to happen. And then I was working, I had some player evaluation stuff this week, so I didn't even get to watch that game. But I was getting text about it, and like I said, okay, the fighting stuff is cool, but like you just know how dangerous it is. And as somebody who played highest level hockey at the club level, like the amount of concussions I know I got and like the long-term effects, like that's a scary thought process. And the NHL pretty much just allowed Wednesday night to happen, which is the worst part of it all. They were just like, okay, we're just going to let this happen. And, 100 penalty minutes in the first period and fights left and right. Good for the team for showing some spirit. I get what people are saying in that, but what if Booch broke his hand, or like,
Right.
what if something serious happens and like a player that you're looking forward to seeing gets hurt or whatever. So you never know what's going to happen with that. At this point, I'm with you, and we're kind of beyond it and past it. But I thought it was I agree, a shameful week for the NHL. And as a hockey fan and as part of the greater hockey family, we have to be better than this. Like you got to punish the guy who's a repeat offender. Just get him out for a few games at the very least. And I think it should be lengthier. But there is 2 sides to that coin. I know like the Players Association would protect him. They got that 20-game suspension down to 14 a couple seasons ago. But at the end of the day, it's about protecting the players. That's why there's a commissioner and a board of governors. That's why there's Players Association, to protect the players and get the best on ice product. And I thought we saw some of the worst in the NHL this past week with the nonsense with Wilson and then all the fighting the other night. It's just, it's not why I love the game of hockey. So it's disappointing. And I think we're on the same page there.
Yeah, he's gonna kill somebody. Like he's gonna break his neck. Like he's gonna do something, and it's gonna be too late. And only then will something change. But it just goes to show the guys at the top, like these league executives, they're in this bubble of protecting the code. And it's not that it doesn't have its place in a sense, having a sort of code, like unwritten rules on the ice, like that's human psychology, right? Like in anything, we're just trying to put a piece of rubber in the back of the net, but there's all these other aspects that go with it that make it interesting. So like, it's not to say that there isn't a somewhat of a place for it, but now we're in this territory where the NHL is enabling Tom Wilson to do things like that, among others.
Good word.
And we're also simultaneously we're living in this era where anytime a player throws any big hit, clean or not clean, they have to answer to it, and that's just as dumb. So
yeah, it's a good point. You want to find a fine line, but it's just like I think it was Chris Versteeg, who's on, I think, Sportsnet or TSN. He did a kind of a soundbite a few weeks ago, or a month ago or now, talking about protecting Connor McDavid. You got to protect your stars. Look, man, you look at any other sport, okay? You hate him or love him, LeBron gets the calls. You got to protect your stars, okay? Steph gets the calls. football. I know it's quote unquote gotten softer because the quarterbacks can't get touched. But look, your quarterbacks are your stars. You got to protect your stars. It doesn't do you good if Patrick Mahomes, breaks his collarbone, is out the whole season. Well, guess what? There's your most marketable player out for the season. You have to protect your stars. And all your players, they all deserve to be protected. But Connor McDavid, Crosby, Panarin, now Adam Fox, like these guys need to be protected. You don't want them getting hurt over stupid shit like this. And it's very, very avoidable if you put in the punishments like that, especially for a repeat offender. Look, you've gotten 20 games, you've gotten 6 games, 7 games, whatever. It's been moved up. Look, he's clearly not getting him. Give him another big one. See, hit him where it hurts. Suspend him without pay, and so it's like you said, it's frustrating because exactly a ton of people tuned in Wednesday night, and I don't think that's the best of us. That's the worst of us. If I have to chime in on that, I'm back when I was a kid. Talk about that Ranger Devil game, the 3 fights off the draw. I was actually at that game. I was 18 years old. Okay, back then, yeah, I thought it was cool and all that stuff, but I know better now. You learn, you get older, you know the lasting effects of head injuries and trauma and stuff like that. We just don't need it. It's frustrating. It really is.
But the difference with that game, though, also was that there was no 48-hour buildup of another incident leading up to that.
True.
Right?
True. There wasn't a direct response. Yeah.
So that's what kind of makes this even dumber, is because there was just all this time had passed, and they clearly had something to do. They could have done something about it in the time leading up to it. That, and I mean, don't most people look around now and say, wow, yeah, the NHL, that's pretty stupid of them, especially after they suspend Booch? Warranted. Did it feel good? Of course it felt good for a second to get some revenge. But is it the right thing to do? No. So, they give him a game. It makes sense. I was in person. I wonder if he got like a little talking to. Like, I wonder what Paris was like. Hey, so what are you guys talking about? And he's like, I don't know. Or if he comes in with a translator or anything. But who knows? I mean, like I said, he's gonna really, really hurt somebody, and he's just a big meathead bully that's being enabled by the league, and he's just gonna keep doing it. And again, you said repeat offender of 2 months ago. He was suspended.
Yeah,
in March,
exactly.
Right? Like, come on. How many times can you say, "Oh, we've sat him down. He knows better now"? I don't know. And people say too, you'd love him on your team, and I'm like, dude, I don't know. We hardly liked Lemieux on our team, and he would only, he'd get the occasional 2-game suspension or whatever. So, yeah, sure, he puts points on the board, but I don't know. I don't like him.
I don't like him either. And obviously the Rangers had strong comments, coming out with their statement, going after Wilson as a repeat offender and pretty much calling for George Parros' job, saying he's unfit to continue his role as the head of player safety. And we saw these comments come out, and we were all kind of like, yeah, I mean, I respect it.
That's wild.
You kind of knew. It's pretty unprecedented. I mean, you never see anything like this. And obviously the league has to come back and slaps the Rangers with a $250,000 fine. Of course, I love the statement from the league where, they talk about George Parros' character and his reputation. Well, that's not what the Rangers questioned. They just said, is he fit for a job? Just because you're a nice guy doesn't mean you're fit to do a job. My mom is a wonderful woman. She would not make a very good hockey coach. There's just, it's not the same thing. You're not even talking about the
Tom
same
Wilson
thing.
might be a phenomenal guy off the ice, but on the ice, he's a
nut job.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's comparing two different completely things. They're not even the same ballpark. It's ridiculous. You knew they were going to get fines, but it just, once again, the Rangers speaking out in defense of their player get fined a heck of a lot more than their players. The player who once again nearly severely injured 2 people in a matter of 20 seconds on the ice the other night.
This is what he said too. He said, this is a quote from earlier today. He said, after the play, I would have never thought that all this would have been blown up.
Cool.
Okay. It seemed like a fairly routine hockey scrum to me. And I think there was kind of the feeling from both players in the penalty box. And then obviously it took on a new life after the game. Yeah, I mean, again, the Buchnevich thing, like we've seen worse. If it was just that, that's an entirely different conversation. But they didn't even address the Panarin thing. And again,
Yeah,
you know,
that was a mistake by the league. Sean McIndoe, I was talking about this on Puck Soup this past week. Mistake in the league to like really identify the Buchnevich thing and not they should have just said straight up $5,000 for the incidents the other night. At least it would have like saved a little
right?
face or whatever. Or if they at least give him two different fines for the two different incidents. But the fact that they only specify the Buchnevich one, once again, whoever's running the NHL PR, like, give me a call. I'll help out if you need to. Because it's like ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you got to know there's going to be blowback for that. That's so stupid of you. Like it just blows my mind. Blows my mind. But it's what we've learned to expect from this league.
Speaking of Puck Soup, too, like Greg Wyshynski, what was that the other day?
Yeah, dude.
Like, what was that?
Wish is a guy who like he grew up like not far from me. Obviously, he's much older than me, but yeah, so I've always liked him. I liked him a Puck Daddy, and I feel like nowadays, and like I listen to Puck Soup, and I really wanted to listen to his basically response. And Ryan Lambert just took a dump on Wyshynski. Like Wyshynski, like was like this pretty much like blogger worked his way up and into this prominent role, and now he's like you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Like he's turned into like the old boy like mentality that he made fun of for so long. So it's kind of weird. Disappointed. Very disappointed with Wyshynski right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't like the comments just like, dude, just like shut up for 2 minutes. Like, let's just like, it's just like, and Lambert went on him on the pod. He was just like, he's like, look, he pretty much, for lack of a better term, told him he was coming out with the red pill, if you will. He's like, you're like the old drunk conservative guy at the table, rambling on about the good old days of hockey.
Yeah.
So it was just like, it was such a stupid take, and you'd like to think he knows better, but I guess he's just looking for the content.
Yeah, I mean, between that and the Capitals post after the game, dude, there's so much to this story. Like talking about it now, there's just so much.
I actually forgot. I forgot about the Capitals post. Oh my freaking god! I don't really even get that meme because I'm old, but like, oh my god, how stupid do you have to freaking be? Just like, come on.
Yeah, very tone deaf.
Who approved that? Who approved that?
And who approved it? Just solely based on like, yeah, okay, you think that like, oh, like, this is hockey and it's in a wrestling sense, like, oh, everybody hates him, he's pesky. It's like, no, we almost watched somebody get knocked out cold. It was really scary.
That's not I don't
know
fun.
what you saw.
Yeah, that's not fun. Like, gosh, I literally almost forgot about that. I can't even like. It's just, oh my gosh, yeah, it really is so much to unfold with this. But obviously, it ends with the $250,000 fine. Excuse me. I think once again, I was just very disappointed with how the NHL handled it this week, and especially Wednesday night. I feel like could have been avoided in some aspects. And it's a sad and crazy end to a bizarre season for the New York Rangers.
Oh my god, we're gonna remember this forever.
Forever, I'll never forget this year. From D'Angelo to Panarin to Mika with COVID, and obviously the COVID year to begin with, and the pandemic, shortened season. Oh my gosh, and then to kind of end with this, and to think we don't even end with this. Because then we're hit with somehow the biggest story of the year with 2-3 days left in the season.
Yeah.
Out of simply nowhere. John Davidson, president of the New York Rangers, and Jeff Gordon, general manager of the New York Rangers, out the door, see ya, goodbye, sayonara, out of left field. And there was talk, the Quinn's press conference got pushed back. So you didn't know if there's, they want to talk about the letter. Could there be another COVID positive? I don't know. And then all of a sudden we are dropped with this ball. Rangers Twitter exploded. We were still trying to handle the Wilson situation and the fights and all that crap. And oh my gosh, what a bizarre day.
Yeah. And I mean, none of us buy that it had nothing to do with the statement, but also, I don't know what else is going on here? Because there has to be more to this story. This doesn't make a lot of sense. Is it really just Dolan acting out, or is it the NHL and whoever coming to them and be like giving them an ultimatum? There had to have been something. I mean, I know the report is that they tried to distance themselves from the statement, which again makes it even weirder that that's a James Dolan statement. Like maybe he's just getting into hockey now and he's trying to figure it out. But it kind of it's kind of funny because you think about it. It's like, oh, what would a basketball guy who occasionally watches hockey do when he sees one of his most valuable assets almost get injured and then nobody respond to it? Well, I guess he can emotionally react in a way such as firing JD. And Gorton, that's one thing, but why fire JD? It must have just been like, hey, if he's gone, I'm gone. But still, less
Yeah,
than 2 years, that's such a sour ending, especially he was on the verge of tears when he was introduced, saying this is like the job of a lifetime for me. He's the perfect Rangers figurehead ambassador. So, I mean, maybe that's, again, maybe in Drury we trust. Maybe they were too much part of the old hockey mentality. We don't know, but it's just, it's so hard to figure out. We can't figure out um, even process what's happened in the last week.
yeah, it's been bizarre. My initial reaction was pretty much, what is going on here? Like just chaos. And initial reaction too, there were some talks about the letter. I mean, they've said that really didn't have to do anything. It sounds like Gordon was kind of, Dolan was brewing this up for a little bit of time here, and seemed like he wanted to hit the acceleration on this a little bit more than maybe Gordon did. And according to reports from Brooks and a couple other guys, like, he wanted JD to fire Gordon. JD didn't want to, so he was basically said, okay, then you're both going to be gone. And I know Drury was the guy in the wings. They were building him up. He took himself out of the Pittsburgh job because I think he knew something was probably coming here down the line. Initially, once again, my biggest gripe with this whole thing is it seems like a very juvenile, like, built up from Dolan, and then something happened that triggered it. Just do it. Like, you couldn't wait till the end of the season. I get it with the exit interviews and who you want conducting them, but just the way he handled this, I thought was very poor, especially with JD, who's a beloved figure in New York for the New York Rangers. And like you said, it's you saw how upset Sam Rosen was yesterday in the broadcast as well, and it hurts. It hurt my heart a little bit. Just devastating in that aspect. But look, reading more about it, I don't think it was done the right way by any means. But I liked what Chris Drury is saying, and a lot of aspects. I mean, he did mention analytics by name. Now, what that means, who knows? But look, if Drury was the guy all along, I get it. I just think it was handled so poorly. Like timing wise, like, dude, you got to read the freaking room. Like, there's chaos right now. Can we just hold the phone for another 48 hours? Can you not wait till Sunday? Just wait till fucking Sunday and just relax for 2 seconds. We'll do it then. Say, hey, we're moving in a different direction. Chris was going to be the guy all along. This is what we're doing. All right, fine. Yeah. But just to do it on top of everything else just was so poor. Once again, PR people, public relations. Someone is not doing a good job at the NHL and the Rangers. Drives me up the wall. So everything I've read about Dolan is, look, he's clearly a passionate guy. I think he's a clown. He's clearly kind of a scumbag. Not kind of a scumbag. He's a fucking scumbag. No one likes James Dolan. But he trusts Glenn Sather. That's like the only person he seems to trust. And Sather had some say in this. As long as Dolan does not have his hands in this, as I take myself away from the emotional aspect of it initially, I'm okay with it. But if Dolan gets his hands involved, we're going to turn it to the Knicks. I mean, and good for the Knicks. Have been great this year because they finally have stability as a coach and a general manager, and Dolan's hands are taken away. Craziness. I liked Chris Drury as a player. He's worked his way up for the last 10 years, basically. So as soon as he was done with the player, he went to USA Hockey first, and he's been with the Rangers for, it's got to be 6-7 years now. So it's been a while. But it just, the timing was just so bizarre. It just added to all of this. It's just so bizarre. And like I said, there's probably always going to be, some untold stories that we're never going to know. They talk about in the Larry Brooks article, Dolan saying, I saw a weakness in a team that was not being addressed. Oh, okay. Like,
it's so broad. Like,
it's so broad. Like, what, like, and then there's this overall spirit and culture that goes with being a team. I believe that is a good job that JD and Jeff have done. Speaking with them, it was clear to me that Chris was going to be the guy to do his forward. Okay, fine. If that's your guy, fine. Still handled terribly. Yep. I just think they could have waited till Sunday and done this. or maybe after the game Saturday, just like get a little bit of time away.
It
But
makes them
look,
look so much more foolish doing it like
it does.
that soon.
Yes, that's a great word. It just makes them look. It's already been a chaotic year. Like to do it on top after the statement and Wilson, it just makes it seem even more messy and lack of culture or leadership. But look, we'll see what Drury does. But I thought it was a sour way to kind of let Gordon and JD go like that after all they've done. But like I keep saying, if Drury was the guy all along, I guess I'm okay with it. It just was so poorly timed.
You think we're trading for Ryan Reeves this offseason?
Here's the thing, right? So they talk about like building those guys, and like those are the pieces you add like late to the puzzle. Like you build the talent up, and then you add those guys late to the puzzle. So for me, I don't know. Once again, he mentioned analytics, and he talked about like the importance of that, and like he talked about his experience on the bench and what he saw. I don't know, but like, look, a little bit more quote unquote piss and vinegar into the lineup. What does that mean? I don't know. But like, there's some merit. The suit on Blue Sea Blogs wrote a good article talking about this. Maybe the good positives of Drury, and you look at some the teams that won the cup the last few years, and like skill guys who also have that little bit more tenacity. You think of a Pat Maroon, an Andre Palat, like guys in that nature. Andrew Shaw when he was good on those Blackhawks teams, like so something like that. If it's replacing Howden and Hayek in the lineup, you can't get any worse. So I don't care who it is at that point. It might as well be Ryan Reeves. At that point, it doesn't really matter. So I think it's going to be addressed. You have to go through the free agent market. But he did maintain that there's still a process and they're not going to rush into any things. So if that's the case, I think we could kind of take a step back and say, okay, this isn't as big of a deal as maybe we thought it was. But it was the timing of it all that really kind of rubbed people the wrong way. And of course it's Dolan, and Dolan doesn't get the benefit of the doubt on anything, because of what he's done as owner of both the Rangers and the Knicks for however long, 20 plus years.
Yeah. What success has James Dolan seen, like even a lick of,
Yeah, exactly. So he never gets the benefit. Like Tom Wilson, he does not get the benefit of the doubt ever.
That he, I don't know, I'm sure you've seen some of it, but his band,
oh my God,
Lady in the Straight Shot, it's hilarious. And he pays to open up for big acts, like because he has the money. I guess he has the inn at like the Beacon Theater or whatever. But he pays to open up for people. So that's funny. There's just endless music videos. It's like, dude, just do like, I don't know, like this is a real life movie character, right? Like evil little villain.
Yeah, exactly.
He's small, like small little guy. Like I don't know. It's so funny.
Trying to kick Spike Lee out of the garden and all that stuff.
Oh my God.
It's just he's just a clown. Like anybody who questions him, like it's just like, oh, get him out of the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Funny. Could you fucking imagine that it like clockwork, it goes from Knicks to Rangers, like it becomes an absolute mess. I mean, it's a mess right now, but like exactly Charles Oakley getting kicked out, like Knicks.
Yeah, Charles Oakley too. Yeah. Oh my God.
Like, yeah, he's a buffoon. I don't know. And it's funny because guys in his circle, in his bubble, like he thinks that he gets an unfair reputation. Like you absolutely know that like he has 1,000 yes men just telling him like, no, people are crazy. They just don't like, yada, yada. It's like, look at Steve Cohen. People love Steve Cohen. And I mean, he fired Chili Davis, and something is in the air this week, the New York sports air, because it's just crazy. I even watched that Yankees Astros game, and I was like, wow, this is literally a wrestling crowd. So
it really is. It's been a mess, and just kind of circling back with Drury, good piece with Larry Brooks in the Post, and I like what he had to say for the most part, and what they're creating and building up and all that stuff. So I'm okay with it as long as Dolan is involved, and it sounds like Dolan is going to be involved, and really it's going to be now what's next. Drury's going to have to hire some guys. I saw a piece talking about Kevin Weeks as a guy the Rangers might target. I like Kevin Weeks a lot. Obviously, he's a former Ranger as well, if you want to keep that in the family, so to speak. Who he brings in this summer, and really, not just the roster decisions are going to be huge, but if David Quinn stays, I mean, I know they have their ties and their Boston University ties, and they've known each other for a while, but I don't know, that press conference, I didn't necessarily get a swimming review of David Quinn from either Sather or Chris Drury. You wonder. I think there's going to be a lot in the player exit meetings this year. Similar when they fired Tortorella, it seemed they did the exit meetings. Sounded like there was a bit of a revolt, and they kicked him out the door the next day. You're wondering if that's something that could happen here.
Yeah, it's a good question because I feel like the players seem to like Quinn, but people on Twitter have been saying that he like people on the bench the last couple of games they're like Quinn looks like he's about to get fired. Like I guess it's
Yeah, I don't know what
like,
that means.
exactly like exactly. But who would have thought that he outlasted JD and Gorton? But
that's true too. That's a great point.
Crazy.
Who would have thought that?
And yeah, like where do they go from here? Actually, halfway through this season, I was ready to almost jump on the Fire Quinn bandwagon halfway through before Mika woke up, like, and before, I don't know, they ended up showing up. Like it seemed like there was a real issue with the team showing up. So I was kind of getting to this point where between that and the in-game management, it was like, all right, it's not that I don't like the guy in a sense, but I was ready to hop on it. And then the team kind of turned it around. They started playing really well. So I kind of think we're left with this question, like, was this a good season for David Quinn, or was this because I don't think it was horrible, but I mean, I'm not going to say it was great, but I is he worthy of really coming back short lease next year, which is probably more realistic, or did they just can him?
Yeah, I'm still on the bandwagon. I think they're going to give him like a really short lease next year, and if they start off slow, they'll can him. But at the same time, like if there's a candidate out there this summer who you really like, those guys are much more readily available perhaps in the summer than they are come October, November when you fire Quinn mid-season, right? So, you think about Chris Knobloch, they seem to have a good little connection there when he was behind the bench. There's obviously some other names that are going to get thrown out. I saw someone say Rick Tocchet looks like he's going to get fired. I'm not a Rick Tocchet fan. I don't want Rick Tocchet, but there's obviously the old hockey names out there.
Jesus Christ.
I know. Elliot Friedman tweeted today that sounds like Tocchett's going to get fired. Like, of course, some people were like, oh my God. But, if there's a guy you want to go get, is it Gallant? Is it, Bruce Boudreau? Some names there. Or do you go off the grid again and
I will hurl if it's Bruce Boudreau. I swear to God, if the Rangers hire Bruce Boudreau.
Well, look, Boudreau at least is a great offensive coach. I give him that. But he at this point in his career, I think is probably better suited as like just an assistant coach to kind of be an ear whisperer, kind of like Jacques Martin is right now.
Yeah.
With David Quinn, he's done a good job. I think his role as a head coach is past. Or do they go off the board and get someone, from, once again, the college ranks again or Europe or whatever? I don't know. I think this next week is, what I just looked up? I didn't even realize this. So the Rangers' last game is Saturday, right? It's tomorrow. The fucking season goes for another week because of all these makeup games. So the playoffs aren't going to start for another week and a half. And I'm like, oh, God. Like, I just wanted the playoffs to start so I don't have to think about the Rangers. And, oh, gosh, it's just, what a mess. Oh, God. What a crazy, as you said, a season we will truly never, ever forget.
Yeah, I wonder too if we're gonna find out more details about the culture, perhaps. I mean, I don't know. My brain jumps to the Tony thing, and it jumps to the Elias Anderson thing. Like, I don't know. Was there just something more at play? And also Krasov. I mean, I wouldn't want to play in Hartford either. If I'm overseas, but still, like maybe there's something more to this. And this was just a final straw kind of thing. I mean, who knows? Maybe Dolan was saying that, you should be playing D'Angelo, or maybe he was sickened by the Lundqvist buyout. Who knows? It's just tough. Again, like answers we'll probably never get until book.
Exactly. Someone's book in 20 years. This would be a great 30 for 30 doc on this season. But it's a bizarre end to a bizarre year. That look, and with the Dolan stuff too, there's talking about what expectations were. Drury and Sather both said that, like, look, if things went well, maybe we could have competed for the playoffs. But I think there's obviously more to it. Clearly, a bit of clash of the Titans up there, so to speak. And will we be better off for it? I guess we'll know down the line. I don't know. It's bizarre, and
not a good feeling. It's not a good.
It's not a good feeling. It was a weird season to begin with. I was optimistic on a lot of aspects. I'm still optimistic on a lot of aspects. But until Drury, what's Drury's first move going to be? That's what's going to tell everything. And if it's like you said, if it's going to sign I don't want to pick on Ryan Reeves because he seems like a decent dude and he has a beer that I want to try. So
who's the dude at San Jose that I'm forgetting his name? Is it Gabriel? Kirk Gabriel, or who's the there's I'm trying to think of like who are still just true enforcers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I, without going like old Trev, but if the Rangers go the route of signing a Donald Brashear again, then we're gonna know, and then I'm gonna have throwing a fit. But like you said, if they went and got a Pat Maroon type, or a prime Brian Boyle type, or something like that, it's like I think that's a little bit different. I saw some people floating out Wayne Simmons. Now Wayne Simmons is old, and unfortunately his body is deteriorating. But Wayne Simmons in his prime was a heck of a hockey player. If it's something along those lines,
that would I'm not opposed to that. If it's
veteran, veteran, 1 year, 1 million, Wayne Simmons.
He shows that he's willing to fucking go for it for whatever team he's on.
I love that guy. I loved him when he was on the Flyers. He was a Ranger killer. He was a good hockey player who. Once again, you play that hard. Unfortunately, your career is usually a little bit shorter. It's just the way it happens. So, he's a guy, I could consider. So if it's along those lines, I'm okay with it. If it's just a pure guy who can't do anything else, but, someone along those lines, and it's just, it'll really kind of be the telltale of what's to come for us. And that's really all we could do is we got one game left tomorrow against Boston, and then it's the off season.
Ranger fans wanted Mason Gertson coming up for that game.
Yeah, that's right.
There was a reply to that to Twitter. There's like somebody tweeting about Gertson and showed the knockout, and like the first comment. These could easily just be anybody, but I just thought it was funny. Somebody's like, I played rec league with this guy a couple years ago. He was a fucking tool. Like he kept saying like, Google me, bro. Like that was his move. So I partially hope that's true. I mean, I'm sure it's not, but that'd be pretty funny if they called up Mason Gertson to do some Matt Carkner-esque attack on Tom Wilson. But,
Matt Carkner.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think about that. It's the same people that are in charge, right? Like game 3 or whatever it was. Matt Carkner throws his gloves off and just attacks Brian Boyle. And that
assaults. He would have been arrested. He just assaulted him.
That's just part of hockey, I guess. I don't know. Or this is a debate. This was on Steve Dangle's podcast. Like, is fighting and penalties generally, is that part of the game, or is it not part of the game? Because it's like one's a penalty, you're getting penalized for doing something that's not a part of hockey, or is it part of the game, which is what they say, right? Fighting is part of the game. So it's just interesting. Hockey's a weird sport, man.
Weird sport, and we're I don't know if we're smart or dumb to be playing along with everybody here. So that's all I got for that. Like I said, folks, we're just gonna stick with that this week. No favorite Rangers or anything like that this week. Just a crazy week in the history of the New York Ranger franchise.
Yep.
To wrap up a crazy season that was. Last thoughts here, Jake, and next week we'll kind of jump into some off-season stuff, and as we go through the playoffs, we'll keep it as Rangers as possible, but we'll have some fun with some other stuff, I'm sure. Overall thoughts. I mean, all the management stuff aside, I mean, did you see this season as a progress overall?
It's a really
dramatic side.
It's a really good question.
I would say overall it was. I think once people got themselves together, we saw Capo Caco turn into an elite two-way forward, metric wise.
You're right.
Lafreniere come in. Fox is an Norris Trophy candidate. Shesterkin established himself. He might be a Calder Trophy finalist. Overall, you saw what you want to see
on the ice. That's
on
totally,
the ice.
You're right. On ice, strictly,
yes.
I think you're right. Absolutely.
Remove the off-ice aspects of thing. I think that's how you got to look at it. Although with this year, it's kind of tough to not only focus on the off-ice stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. And this will be our last in-season podcast. So we'll have to do some like best of, worst of moments or something like that.
Absolutely, we'll do a little season recap and jump into some playoff predictions as we go down the line here.
Yeah, that'd be fun to get some guests on too. You know, a
Absolutely.
couple peeps. But yeah, I think that's all we got.
It's all for me.
Good stuff. All right. Well, Ranger fans, thank you so much for listening this season. We're happy to have experienced this with you. This has been a wild ride, and hopefully going forward, we have some more things to cheer about and less to be sickened by. So I'm Jake Albee, your co-host, along with my other co-host, Coach Connell McNeilis. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Later, folks.